All right. Good evening, baseball fans. This is the Bicoastal Baseball Podcast on the Grid Network, the only exclusive baseball podcast on the Grid Network. I'm Mike Guido. That's Dalton Brown. Your boys here on a Monday. Dalton, we are on episode 10, buddy. We're in double digits, man.
How about it?
That's good. So we have plenty of stuff to go over today. So coming up a little bit later, one of the guys that I think that we can, kind of talk about is one of the best athletes in the sport, Elly Cruz. He's stolen 30 bases in just under 50 games this year. So he's been unbelievably fast. I'll tell you that. OPS just over about 820. So we'll talk about that. Can he reach the magical number 100? We'll touch on that a little bit later. The Houston Astros continue to heat up. We'll touch on that. Is it time to buy into them? We touched on it briefly last week. Dalton shaking his head yes already. I'm sure you can understand where we're going to go with that. That'll come up a little bit. The San Diego Padres are a very interesting team, Dalton Brown. You probably know this more than most, with their tendencies to win big and then lose big. That just seems to be what they do. So we'll touch on that as well. Plus, stay tuned for the end of the show today. Dalton's Hot Corner help put some money in your pocket. So Dalton, how you doing, my friend? This is episode 10. I'm happy, man. This is a milestone in my books, at least.
Yeah, hey, I'm feeling good. I'm excited to be here again. Ton of fun, something to look forward to on Monday night, at least for me. Plenty to talk about. Season in full swing. We're getting closer and closer to the 1/3 mark. You can start to, once you start heading into June, it's fair to start making some judgments on teams, I think.
Yeah.
So plenty to talk about. I'm a little sunburned, little tired after a day out on the course yesterday at Valhalla. Had a ton of fun, but ready to lock in and enjoy some ball this week. And I'll be heading out this weekend to Dodgers, Reds, in Cincinnati. So a lot of fun ahead.
Yeah, for the bicoastal baseball fans that understand how pessimistic Dalton is on the Cardinals, I think they might be a little bit confused by your hat choice today, but we could probably leave that where it is.
Listen, I'm just trying to wear hats I haven't worn yet on the show, and I don't think I've worn one yet, so here it is.
There you go. Hey, well, listen, it's time to break this one out. See, this, I think, can be interpreted of how lowly you think of them, because if this is just like, all right, I got to get the Cardinals in at some point, I don't think they'll get hot at any point in the season, so I can't represent them then. So might as well just get this one out of the way.
Pretty much.
But as we do every single show, we cater to our own fan bases. Sorry, not sorry. Yankees, Dodgers over there. Let's begin today with a Yankees rant. I am on cloud 9 here, over here in New York. A sweep of the Twins in Minnesota, to be expected. We own the Twins. It just certainly seems to be that we own the Twins. I think in our history, we've played the Twins close to a season's worth of times, and we are at 118 and 44 or something like that historically against the Twins. We are absolutely demolishing them all time. And the Chicago White Sox obviously taking care of business there at the stadium, sweeping them, outscoring the Twins 14-1 in that series, outscoring the White Sox 17-5 in that series as well. Listen, so you can walk away from a series outscoring your opponent 31-6. I think that's a pretty successful week. 7-game winning streak right now. The Yankees right now are averaging scoring about 6 runs a game. They're giving up about 1.5. So it's working, right? Everything right now seems to be working. The pitching has been, I cannot stress enough how unbelievably great this pitching has been without Garrett Cole. It's just the fact that we are getting consistent quality starts, real quality starts out of guys like Clark Schmidt, Luis Heel, right? Rodon sometimes has his early game troubles, but usually settles in, gives up 1 or 2 runs a starters or so. I can live with that, right? So you just see a lot of consistency in this rotation. The bullpen has obviously been fantastic. Clay Holmes, to this point in the season, still has an ERA of 0. So that seems to be an upside right there. And this might be the most important bit Aaron Judge is officially back, dude. Like all the doubt early in the season, he's now tied for the American League lead in home runs. He's got 13 homers this year. His batting average has shot up all the way to 266. His OPS has shot up all the way to 980. I believe his OPS now is larger than Juan Soto's. And Juan Soto's hit a little bit of a lull in the past week or so, week and a half. Still hitting 300, still OPS over 900. I'm not worried about it. But Aaron Judge is officially back. There is a lot to be excited about as a Yankee fan. I really don't have anything to complain about. A tough 4-game series this week against the Mariners at Yankee Stadium. That's a good pitching staff. They don't hit, but they can certainly pitch. So they're up 2-0 right now against the Mariners, against Logan Gilbert, but not much to complain about here.
Yeah, I mean, it's your team goes 7-0. I mean, not a whole lot to say other than good job.
Yeah, right.
So it's funny. The Yankees right now, like, it feels like the best fantasy baseball strategy I can recommend at the moment is just stream the Yankee starter every night. Just if they're available on waivers, go grab them and start them. I don't care if it's Cortez, Heel, it doesn't matter. Schmidt, just throw them out there because they're going to pitch well. Yeah, I mean, look, it's baseball seasons have their ups and downs, right? And
certainly,
and when you're on this kind of a high, you want to ride it as far as it'll go. You know, it won't last forever, but you know, it's a good place to be. And look, you and I talked about the fact that, like, if the Yankees can start to build a little bit of a pad over Baltimore early on, the path to Baltimore staying competitive in that division gets hard to imagine in some ways, right? I mean, there's always wiggle room, but right now it's still only 2 games, so they haven't really pulled away yet. Partially because Baltimore's played well, but they're making life tough on the others because eventually Garrett Cole's going to come back. That staff's going to get even better. So yeah, it's certainly a good time to be a Yankee fan.
It really is fantastic. You know, I think every Yankee fan still has at least a little bit of pause in the division just because, I mean, it wasn't too long ago that we lost 3 out of 4 in Baltimore in that series. And that gives people a little bit of like, you know, but, and listen, that's not to take away anything that they've done recently. But as far as the division is concerned, I don't think anybody is taking the division lightly. Baltimore is still a fantastic baseball team that seems to only be getting better and better. So it'll be interesting how they go. But hey, listen, I'm riding high right now. So enough about the Yankees. They're playing great. I don't have much else to say. What do you have for the Dodgers today?
Well, I mean, solid week for the Dodgers. 5-2 against the Giants and Reds. You know, those are teams that you'd like to at least go 5-2 against. So they did their job from a record perspective. You know, a couple of games in the middle there that weren't so great, but you know, Logan Webb sometimes will get you, and he got us in the last game of the Giants series. You can live with that. The Thursday game was pretty befuddling. The Dodgers come into that game with Glasnow pitching against a bullpen game for the Reds, and the bats just don't show up. Elly de la Cruz steals 4 bases in part because Austin Barnes is one of the worst defensive catchers in the game, let alone offensive. It's astounding given how good the Dodgers are at pretty much everything that backup catcher is something that they've decided they're okay with being like just a player coach who provides basically 0 on-field value. But whatever. I mean, if the team's okay with it, they're okay with it. If they start him behind the plate in a playoff game, I'm going to blow a gasket, but they won't. So yeah, I mean, solid week. The most important thing that happened all week for the Dodgers was Walker Buehler's start on Saturday. Seeing him come out and pitch 6 scoreless innings, he only needed 78 pitches to do it, right? You think later this season that probably turns into a 7 or 8 inning outing. But seeing him come out and like actually push around a lineup like that, it looked like the Walker Buehler of like 2021. You know, he's still sitting 95, 96 with his fastball, which I don't think anybody saw coming. I think we were all expecting him to be 92, 93 coming off the injury. So, you know, really encouraged by that. If Walker Buehler can be that guy, this rotation's really good. It already is. I mean, because Gavin Stone is clearly blossoming into at least a major league number 2 or number 3. Landon Knack, whenever they call him up for a spot start, just does his thing. You know, and then Yamamoto's been great. Glasnow's obviously been great. So, Yeah, I mean, up and down the rotation, it's not quite what the Yankees have done, but they're starting to round into a really solid group. I didn't even mention Paxton, who's mostly been great as well. So, really happy with the pitching. I feel for James Outman. Finally got sent down to AAA after the start he's had to his season.
Yeah.
Good to see Jason Hayward come back, hit a homer in his first game back. Miguel Vargas getting a second chance, once top prospect who couldn't hit worth a lick last year. So maybe this year Vargas finds something. I know sometimes it takes time. So shuffling the deck a little bit, but the Dodgers look very good. They're 32-17, doing what they're supposed to do. You got 3 with Arizona this week, 3 in Cincinnati this weekend. I'd like to see them go 4-2 or something like that again and just keep on rolling.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, listen, I don't know that there's much to really worry about with the Dodgers right now. I think you're right on with the rotation. The fact that they're getting really quality starts out of their young arms, that was important for them going into the season, especially early, right? We obviously know what Bobby Miller is. I think that guy's got a really bright future, but guys like Landon Knack, guys like Gavin Stone have really provided a lot of good starts. And James Outman is interesting only because, like, I think there were so many people that had such high hopes for him coming into this season as a highly touted young player in the Dodgers organization, starting off the season 147 with a 516 OPS, just a really troubling start. So, if you could just dive a little deeper into that aspect, just because I think like Outman really was kind of one of these like young players that Dodger fans were excited about. He played a lot of good baseball last year, and then this year he just hasn't really translated as much as he did.
Yeah, I think so. The thing with Outman is the athleticism and the defense will always translate, right? And it provides him with a decent floor as far as his value as a player. Everything that you hear about his attitude is really positive, right? He's a guy that just continues to work at it. And it seems like Roberts really believes in him. And I feel for him because I think that he's working his butt off at it and he's just going through it. Some of it is that he's kind of a strikeout prone type guy. And I think pitchers are kind of finding holes and exploiting it. Hopefully, he'll go back down to AAA, find it again. And I'm sure they'll give him another shot. Like, this isn't the last we've seen of him. Yeah. So, I'm hoping this is just one of those things that he's got to go through. And I'm hoping it doesn't get him too far down. I wanted to touch too on the Dodgers pitching situation a little bit more because you mentioned Bobby Miller. One of the things that doesn't get talked about with the Dodgers is like this is a staff that come August is going to have like some decisions to make, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because you're not bringing Clayton Kershaw back to put him in the bullpen, right?
No.
Like Bobby Miller will be back. He'll be in the rotation, right? Glasnow and Yamamoto are going to be in the rotation. So for that last spot, now you've got what? You've got Gavin Stone, who's been great. You've got James Paxton, who's been very good. You've got Landon Knack. You've got Walker Buehler. Like, it starts getting – and this is still with Tony Gonsolin out for the year, Dustin May out for the year, Emmett Sheehan out for the year. Like, if they end up with all of these guys healthy, and I don't want to get too far into this, but if they end up with all of these guys healthy going into 2025, you almost have like 2 rotations of guys that like would pitch in almost any rotation in the league.
Yeah,
that's
right.
That's a pretty that's a pretty exciting thing to be able to say, especially because there are still dudes coming up through that system.
Yeah.
So, from a pitching perspective, it just feels like the organization is in an impressively healthy place, despite not being super healthy. So just pleases me to see.
No, it's interesting. I mean, obviously, it's obviously in baseball, it's an unbelievable luxury to just have tons of depth behind the rotation. It's just such it's such a big deal to have. And that's not to mention when next year comes around and Ohtani gets back into the fold as a pitcher as well. Like,
I wasn't even thinking about that, as crazy as that is. By the way, I gotta call out one thing I've seen too much of on the internet.
Uh-huh.
If I see one more of these dumbass takes about maybe Ohtani just shouldn't pitch anymore, he's just such a good hitter. Maybe he should, stop it.
Yeah, no.
Like, seriously, like, stop. Like, he was a good hitter when he was pitching. And if anything, it's not like this extra gear that he's unlocked is going to go away because he's pitching. Like, if anything, he's just becoming a better hitter. Next year he'll come back and we'll see what we get from him on the mound. But like the amount of value he provides as a pitcher, you're not just going to pass that up in hopes that you have some nebulous idea that it's making his hitting better.
Yeah.
Like, get out of here. That's the kind of clickbait take that I just don't do well. Like, I can't do it.
Yeah. Well, you want here we go. You ready for a clickbait take real quick? I think it's a little silly, the fact that they already named May 17th Shohei Ohtani Day. I think that's a little nuts. That's a little nuts. First of all, he spent whatever it was, 7 years with the Dodgers. Or I'm sorry, not with the Dodgers, with the Angels. It took him to be a Dodger for about 3 months for them to finally say, you know what? Let's give this guy a day, an official holiday in Los Angeles. I think that's silly.
Well, so silly. It is. But here's number one, Anaheim's not in LA. You got to remember that.
Thank you. That's what makes it. This is where I thought I was going to get you too.
Here's the other thing, right? It's completely silly, but also like there's a lot that's going on with this that's like kind of funny. Like if you look at like not only the Dodgers sponsorships at home, but take a look at what happens when they play on the road. Like when the Dodgers go to San Francisco, all of a sudden you're seeing Japanese advertisers like buying ad spots at Oracle Park, right? Like you'll probably see it in Cincinnati this weekend. You're going to see like Japanese ads in Cincinnati, which is a hilarious thought in that market, right? Like it's pretty amazing. All of a sudden, the official airline of the Dodgers is ANA, which stands for All Nippon Airways. That's a Japanese airline. Like if you walk around Dodger Stadium, they've got like a whole like takoyaki stand that does sushi. It's a whole like they literally have a stand called DH that serves like all kinds of like yakitori and Japanese food. So it's a full takeover. It's something that the fans are embracing. Is it silly? Absolutely, but people are eating that shit up.
I find it amazing. I honestly thought, to be honest with you, I thought I was going to catch it. I thought I was going to catch a hand or something like that coming in here, kind of crapping on Ohtani Day. I think it's kind of funny.
It's funny. I mean, because what is Ohtani Day? Like what okay, yeah, right. What are we going to get it off next year?
Do you know how much, by the way, and I know it's not entirely the same, but like how much people would be making fun of Yankee fans if we made like May 22nd national, like Juan Soto Day in New York. People would be shitting on us forever. It would be unbearable.
Yeah. You can shit on it. I'm not going to tell you that's wrong. It's a completely ridiculous thing to do. And then he comes out and homers on Ohtani Day, and the announcer's like, and a home run on Ohtani Day. Like, it's ridiculous. It is.
It's funny, man. It really is. But, okay, that's it for the Yankees and Dodger rants. Let's get you a score update here. So right now, we had 2 games earlier today. Padres beat the Braves at home 6-5, and the White Sox took a loss. Oh, what do you know? Took a loss to the Toronto Blue Jays in Canada 9-3. And as we stand right now, the Yankees and Mariners, Yankees up 3-0 right now on the Seattle Mariners. Alex Verdugo with 3 RBIs in this game. Let me just, but before we get other scores really quick, while we're just on this, I don't know that many people expected Alex Verdugo to be this productive in New York. He's hitting cleanup right now for the Yankees. Like, he's really been a productive player. So just want to throw that out there.
I mean, he's batting cleanup, but he's batting, 250, 5 homers,
sure.
OPS 7. I mean, he's been fine, but,
he's hitting in a lot of big spots. That's all I see. That's all I'm saying. He's definitely been there. So the Yankees right now heading into the top of the 6th, up 3-0 against the Mariners. The Guardians in the bottom of the 8th lead the Mets 3-1 in Cleveland. Game 2, doubleheader today between the Padres and the Braves. The Braves up 3-0 right now in the top of the 8th. The Milwaukee Brewers right now up 2-0 on Miami in South Florida, bottom of the 7th. The Washington Nationals up 7-3 heading into the bottom of the 6th over the Twins. in DC. Boston with a 5-0 lead over Tampa Bay in St. Pete. That's in the top of the 7th as well. And then we got a couple of games that are kind of just starting out. Royals up 1-0 in Kansas City over the Tigers in the bottom of the 3rd. 1-0 Cardinals. See, the hat's bringing them good luck here, Dalton. 1-0 Cardinals in St. Louis over the Orioles, bottom of the 2nd. And the Angels put a run up in the top of the 1st against the Astros in Houston. They lead 1-0. And then later tonight, Arizona Diamondbacks and the LA Dodgers in Los Angeles. It's Yamamoto getting the start. Joe Mantiply getting the start for Arizona. Bullpen day for Arizona today?
He's an opener. It's gonna be Slade Ciccone for the most part for Arizona. Joe Mantiply acting as an opener. If you play fantasy baseball, you should be rostering Slade Ciccone today. Opportunity to get starting pitcher production without having to use one of your 12 starts for the week. So, little fantasy baseball note for some folks there. Although he might get lit up, but it's worth the outing because it's a free one. I'm excited to see Yamamoto pitch tonight. Hopefully, he keeps doing what he's been doing. One thing I'd like to see him do: start a game one time with a breaking ball. He loves to start every game with a fastball that just gets drilled for whatever reason because teams know he's going to do it. Other notes looking around, Tanner Houck continues to dominate for Boston. They've got a 5 there. I mean, he's down to 1.97 ERA now live. He's been a part of a really surprising rotation there.
6 innings, no runs, 1 hit against the Rays tonight.
Yeah, I mean, he's just been phenomenal. Guardians continuing to play super uninteresting baseball. They're leading the Mets. The Guardians will fall off eventually. I'm just so tired of them. And then I want to make a scheduling comment here too. The Phillies don't play till tomorrow. They open up a 3-game series with the with the Rangers starting tomorrow. And unfortunately or fortunately for the Phillies, the Rangers lost 2 out of 3 this weekend to the Angels. What does that mean? That means that Philadelphia still has not played a team that has started a series against Philadelphia with a record of over 500 all season.
Wow.
Not once this season has a team entered a series with Philly with a winning record. Of course, the closest thing to it, when they opened up this season, they opened up with the Braves, but the Braves opened that series at 0-0. So they didn't have a record yet. Texas comes into that series at 24-24. I thought this was finally the series that was going to break that. If you look at what's to come for Philadelphia, this weekend they, I believe, continue the trend. Yeah, this weekend they'll play Colorado. Then they play San Francisco. Then they play St. Louis. I think they will not play a team that will start the series over 500 until June 3rd when they host the Milwaukee Brewers. Be on the lookout for a Milwaukee Brewers losing streak before then, just because of the Phillies.
Something to look out for, certainly. But that is amazing.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. That's incredible. So do you take away from their record a little bit because of that, Mark?
A little. Look, if you're 34-14, that doesn't happen by accident, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they've been really good. They can't control the schedule they play. Look, they've scored more runs than any team in baseball, so they deserve some credit for that. That being said, they've also played the weakest schedule in baseball. So I think they're going to come down to earth a little bit. I still think the Braves win that division. You can get the Braves right now to win that division -150 at FanDuel. I don't think that's a bad play. I'm going to wait and see if I can get a slightly better number.
So let's move to the 1-2-3 inning, shall we? So the first out, Elly de la Cruz is a problem. I mean, in my mind, he's got to be one of the, 3 or 4 most fun players to watch in Major League Baseball. And he hasn't really blossomed into like a star yet, but he's just such an interesting player, right? Right now, sitting at an 829 OPS, 9 homers, 22 RBIs. He's hitting .256. So the numbers certainly are not like off the chart amazing. But one of the things that we do kind of want to touch on is Major League leading 30 stolen bases already in 47 games. He's been caught stealing only 5 times. So, I mean, listen, the question really is he going to reach 100? I think the answer, if he stays healthy, is undeniably yes. I just don't see, I just think he's too athletic. Like, when I told you this pre-show, when I saw Elly De La Cruz had 30 stolen bases and he was caught stealing 5 times, I was surprised he was caught 5 times. Like, I just think, like, he's so, like, not only is he unbelievably fast, but his legs are so unbelievably long that, like, the guy goes from first to second base in 4 or 5 steps. Like, I just don't know that, like, I didn't think it was humanly possible for a catcher to get up and throw a ball hard enough to get him out if he gets a decent jump. I just don't, like, he must have left when the ball left the pitcher's hand. Like, I don't see it. So what do you make? Elly De La Cruz, obviously the bat's going to come around, I think, eventually, but does he reach 100 stolen bases in your mind?
So he's on pace right now for 103.
Yeah.
It's possible he gets to 100. I wouldn't call it likely, partially because, like, he's just not – he doesn't get on base, I don't think, quite enough yet. But that being said, if the hit tool continues to develop, like, the potential here in so many ways is through the roof in terms of, like, production, but also, like, the fun factor with him. I don't know if you caught wind of this on the East Coast, but 2 years in a row now, he's had, like, big-time games on the road at Dodger Stadium. And last year, when he was doing his interviews in Spanish, he was like, he said in English, he goes, "This is my city," in English. And the reporter was like, "This is your city?" And he was kind of just laughed it off. And he's like, "Yeah, this is my city." Well, then he comes back this year and he steals 4 bases in the first game of the series at Dodger Stadium on Thursday. And the Reds reporter, Jim Day, asks him, he goes, "So, Elly, you said last year this is your city, and now here you are again having a great game in LA. Like, what is it about it?" And now he's doing his interviews in English. He's made a huge effort to learn English. It's been kind of fun to watch.
Yeah.
And, a lot of what he had to say is he's like, "Well, the first time I visited America, I went to LA." He's like, "So it was the first place I visited." So apparently he just loves the city. And then he was talking about how for him, he plays a ton of GTA. And so because of his experience playing Grand Theft Auto, which takes place in the fictional town of Los Santos, which is modeled after Los Angeles.
Right.
Because of that, he, like, literally is like, he's like, "I love LA. It's kind of my city. So when I'm here, I like to say it's my city." And apparently he used to tell friends growing up that he was from LA because he had visited LA and he liked it. So, I mean, he's just unrelentingly likable. Like, even when he's ripping my team's heart out in that game on Thursday, you can't help but kind of smile watching him. So, he's just good for baseball. Like, he's one of those players that I want to see have success. Also, I was in the building last year in Cincinnati when he hit his first major league home run, which happened to be against the Dodgers. And, like, the sound off of his bat is different. Like, he's got that extra it factor to him. So, I just love Elly De La Cruz in general. I also want to make a comment on the Reds. If there's one team that has, like, a very poor record that I kind of don't want to give up on right now, they're kind of in that conversation. Like, watching them against the Dodgers this weekend, it just feels like they've had a little bit of Murphy's Law this year. And I didn't even realize this till recently. They're 1-11 in one-run games. Like, that'll turn around. At least it should. So, I'm not saying the Reds are going to win the World Series or win the division, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them fight their way back into contention eventually.
Yeah, no, they're currently 8.5 back, sitting in last place in the NL Central. They're about a game and a half back of the Cardinals for that 4th place spot. They're sitting at 19-28 at the moment. I agree. I think eventually they're going to come, like, the Reds are going to be one of those teams where, like, they're very young and very talented, and, like, eventually they're just going to all get hot at the same time and just go on a tear, I think, for a little bit. And I agree. I think Elly De La Cruz is as likable as they get, or almost as likable as they get in the majors. I want to kind of bring this up too, because you hear so many, like, baseball talking heads talk about this, right? Where, like, it is so important for the growth of the game to be about, like, seeing the best athletes in the world play baseball, right? Because you see so many of these other guys that are super fast and super strong. It's like these really incredible natural born athletes. They all play other sports, right? I mean, and this is no offense really to the guys who are currently in the league, right? But you're not getting the guys that are the fastest or jump the highest, or like they all go play football, they all go play soccer, they all go play basketball. Like so many of those guys they migrate to other sports to capitalize on that athleticism. It's important, I think, for guys like Elly De La Cruz in the sport, because you bring up a good point. Watching him makes the game fun inherently. It just does, right? Because you just see him on the field. He's 6'5", 200 pounds. He's some 21-year-old kid who is just like, he just looks different than everybody else, right? He's bigger, faster, stronger. You just said it yourself, right? Like the sound off his bat is different, right? If the hit tool does develop, right, to a point where like, because he's hitting 256 right now. If he gets to a point where he's hitting 280, 290 at some point in his career, right? He's still a really young player. If he gets the hit tool to somewhere in that range, I mean, like you're talking about like not even just one of the most exciting players in baseball, but one of the best players in baseball, because if he can get on base 36, 37% of the time, like I would imagine, and I'm sure there's a stat for this. You're better at, these, deep stats more, you're better at that than I am. But like how often a player getting on base translates to them scoring, right? There's got to be a stat for that, right? Or is that not a thing?
I'm sure that there is somewhere that's tracked. I don't know where to find it. I'm sure if we took the time, we could find it.
Yeah.
But he's got to be near the top of that list.
That's what I'm saying.
Those are going to be the best base running guys, or guys who have the best hitters behind them, right? Like,
right.
I'm guessing Mookie Betts is really high on that list with Shohei and Freddie right behind him. And, like Michael Harris of the Braves, I could see being really high on that list too.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a fun stat to think about, right? It's kind of the old like table setters type of deal. But no, I mean, you're right. I think there are certain players that like athletically just look and feel different to watch. Like De La Cruz is in that category. Aaron Judge, right? Shohei Ohtani. Like there's certain guys around the league that just look different. Paul Skeens, by the way, we talked about it last week. He's in that category.
Absolutely.
So it's good to have players like that in the game. Obviously part of what makes baseball special is you can't just be athletic, right? Like being athletic is never enough in baseball, whereas in other sports, like frankly, it can be. Sure. So, but yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
So I think it is interesting to kind of point out that, listen, it's quite the spectacle to watch, at least, especially right now. I mean, this is, like I said, I think it kind of gets lost in the whole process, right? Because there are a lot of people, I'm sure, that expected him to burst onto the scene and just kind of start taking over the league in some sense. He's 22 years old. You know what I mean? He's got a long, long future ahead of him. I mean, he's not even close to his prime, really. I mean, he's just getting started. And if those tools again, like we've said, if those two tools continue to develop, he's going to be scary in the league for a long time. Okay, so let's move to the second out. The Houston Astros, and I hate it. I hate it. Right now, sitting at third in the AL West. I think the last time we talked about them, they were fourth. They did climb. They are in third. Angels and A's behind them. They're sitting at 21 and 26, just a measly 4 games back of the Seattle Mariners for first place in that division. They have played well as of late. They swept the Oakland A's. They took 2 out of 3 at home against the Brewers. They're coming, Dalton. They are coming. I mean, we did kind of talk about this last week. Right now, they're at home against the Angels right now. They have a 3-gamer against them, and then they play the A's again in Oakland. So, I mean, we could beat the hell out of this dead horse if we really want to. But what's making the Astros interesting right now? What do you make of them? I mean, obviously, I think we like them to win the division in some sense. So, what do you think?
I mean, I agree with you on us not wanting to beat a dead horse on this because we've talked about it a good bit in recent weeks.
Yeah.
But I think it's a lot of what we've been saying about them is just kind of true, right? I mean, this is a team that's too talented to be that bad.
Right.
And I mentioned it last week. Their GM gave them a vote of confidence and said, "Look, I'm not going to sell." Uh, and I know it sounds like silly, but like that kind of thing can matter a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like the pitching starts to turn around, and it's like I said, right? The pitching was never going to be that bad. I'm not saying the pitching is going to be good, but it was never going to be that bad, right? Arrighetti wins 2 starts in a row last week, starting to look like a decent major leaguer. I'm not saying that he's going to be great, but he might be serviceable, and that's all they really need their pitchers to be is serviceable. I mean, like you look at the game Friday, Hunter Brown picks up a win over Freddie Peralta. Pretty encouraging, right?
Yeah, right.
So I think they're just a team that was always going to turn the corner. My bold prediction with Houston, they are going to be in first place in that division by Sunday night. By the time we record next Monday, the Astros are going to be in first place in that division.
Wow.
They go to Anaheim, they get Anaheim at home, right? Anaheim at home, and then they go to Oakland. I think they're going to go 5-1 at a minimum. I truly do. I think they're probably going to go 5-1. Meanwhile, Seattle is in New York right now for 4 games. Texas is in Philly right now playing a red-hot Phillies team. I just don't see either one of those series going particularly well. Seattle's only 4 games up on Houston right now. That division's already pretty close. And so I think they're going to be right there by the end of this week. By the way, the Rangers, after they leave Philly, they go to Minnesota. That's not an easy one. The only team that gets free wins against Minnesota is the Yankees. It's just the way of the world, right? But but you look, I mean, Mariners are on the East Coast all week. Texas is out of town all week playing first place teams. Look out. I'm telling you, by next Monday, Houston's going to be in first. I cannot recommend strongly enough. I was going to save it for the hot corner, but I'd rather just get it out there now. Bet Houston to win the division. You can get it at plus 175 right now at FanDuel. There's just no reason to pass up on that number. Because I'm telling you, this time next week, they're going to be like even money or worse. You're going to have to lay money to get there. They're the team that should win that division all along. Bet them now while you can.
So this actually kind of brings up a question from me, really, because I agree. I think it's fair. I don't want to call it safe, but I would definitely call it like encouraging that Houston could end up winning this division. Like I said, preseason, we all kind of expected, and I don't know what the number was early on in the year. I would imagine that that's something that you would either know or have at least looked at before. But for the Astros to win the division preseason, just from an inexperienced sports bettor like myself, right? Does it make sense in some way to, if you get a situation like the Astros were in, right? And I don't know how often this happens, but where the Astros right now were the favorite to win the AL West early on in the year from a betting perspective, and they get off to a terrible start. Is it worth waiting to see if that terrible start happens before you lay the bet preseason? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand what you're asking. What I would tell you in general is every moment in time is its own moment in time, which is like a really nebulous way of what I'm getting at, which is basically like you have to look at that bet in that moment and say, is it positive EV right now, right? Does this bet have positive expected value right now? If it does, and you are a betting person, right, then you should bet it, period. So if preseason you're looking, and let's say for argument's sake the Astros were even money, which is kind of close to what they were. They're even money. That means you need that bet to win 50.01% of the time for it to be positive EV, right? Well, if you think that it's more likely than not that they're going to win the division, you should bet it at that number. You shouldn't wait, right? Because if they start out 8-4, and then they start out 20-16, even, like, you're never going to see that number again. For me, I did bet the Astros preseason to win the division.
Yeah.
I bet them again today because now I have them at somewhere close to even money, and I also have them at plus 175. I also have a bet. I have a parlay bet of Astros, Braves, and Dodgers to all make the playoffs at like even money. My thought process being that like Dodgers and Braves are pretty auto to make the playoffs, so I'm basically betting the Astros just to make the playoffs. So that way, even if they do it as a wild card, I'll bring something home. But
Yeah. Right.
to answer your question, like you have to just keep it simple and evaluate a bet in the moment. Either it makes sense in that moment or it doesn't.
Mhm.
You can't like now that just because you're not waiting for opportunities doesn't mean you're not fishing for them, though, right? Like Dodgers fell to like 13-12, and all of a sudden you could get them over 99 wins. I jumped all over that. I think I gave it out on this show. They're now like 105 in all the markets again.
Yeah. Right.
So it's like, okay, you bought them at their low point. Now that stock's back up, and now you've got 6 wins of, you got 6 wins of theoretical
leeway. Yeah.
Credit there, right? So yeah.
So it's interesting in my mind just because I'm thinking of like if the number is just shit on like the Braves, preseason, you know what I mean? Is it worth waiting to get a better number on the Braves just in case they start the season 8-19 and you know what I mean? Like eventually they just like because they're going to be good, you know what I mean? But is it worth risking that?
It's all a matter of your risk tolerance and what you think the number is versus what you think it should be, right? Like if the Braves are minus 300 preseason, that means that we're implying that they're going to win the division 75% of the time, right?
Yeah.
If you think that they're going to win the division 82% of the time, you should be betting them at minus 300.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's just what the numbers say. So, in some ways it's a lot simpler than it sounds once you just think about it from a numbers perspective, but at the same time, like how do you calculate any of that? Like that's the challenge, right? How do you calculate any of that?
Right. Well, hey, listen, I always say, people should listen to you because, you do have the cool hat that you got at the FanDuel party, and that's reason enough, I think, to follow your advice on some of this stuff. So, but anyway, yes, listen, the Astros right now, there was no secret, and I've had the same complaint about them from the beginning of the season. They could obviously hit, but they couldn't get anybody out, especially in the middle of their bullpen, right? And the back of their bullpen was something that just couldn't be, it just couldn't be like, it couldn't be worse for them, right? Hader was struggling for a while. Ryan Presley was struggling for a while, right? Like Brian Abreu has legitimately been bad this season for the most part. So, I've really just kind of worried about them from a pitching perspective. And like I said, I absolutely hate the fact that they're kind of coming back. But, listen, there was no secret that if the pitching was able to turn itself around, then they were going to be just fine. Especially, and this was, I think, the big point that we touched on last week was like the top of this division is fairly underwhelming, right? Like Seattle is what? They're 25-22. The Rangers are 500 at 24-24. Like they have not taken advantage of the Astros playing poorly. They just haven't, right? The gap is simply not wide enough. So if this is the point, right? Like I said, there was a deadline to the faith that I had in the Astros. The deadline was further out than this. If they start getting hot now, this is, I think it's fairly safe to say that they have a good shot at this division easily. So as we go to the third out, I'm gonna kind of let you take the reins on this because the San Diego Padres have to be one of the more interesting teams in all of baseball. They are so funny because, one of the things that we notice, right, and especially in the last week or so, they like to beat good teams and then seemingly lose to bad teams sometimes, it looks like. So, Dalton, take it away. What do you find interesting right now about the San Diego Padres, and what makes you want to crap on them this evening?
The San Diego Padres are exactly who I've been saying that they are, right? Like, this is a team that does, like, they're like, you commend them because they'll win series against the Dodgers. They'll take 3 out of what looks like 4 from the Braves. Good for you. But you get swept by the Rockies at home in between them. Like, and a lot of people look at that and they're like, oh man, like if they could just play better against the Rockies, like what a good team. And it's like, well, no. The thing with the Padres is that there's incongruencies in their effort and in their care, and you can see it watching them. Like, this is a team that the level of energy in that dugout is visibly different depending on who they're facing.
Yeah.
Like, the way they react to big hits is visibly different depending on who they're facing. Their execution level is visibly different depending on who they're facing. So, like, to me, this is an organizational issue that has plagued this team for a number of years now. I mean, this is the same shit we saw with them last year.
Yeah.
And what it comes down to is I don't think they have great leadership in that clubhouse. I don't think they have great leadership as an organization. I think they're a team that gets hot and blows their load when a good team is the opponent, and then when all of a sudden they're playing in a quiet ballpark, they just kind of can't find their own energy, and I think that costs them in the long run. Speaking of which, I'll tell you exactly what's going to happen this week. Okay, they're going to go to Cincinnati. They're going to win 2 out of 3. Or excuse me, they're going to go to Cincinnati. They're going to lose 2 out of 3. Okay, the Reds are going to look like world beaters. Padres are going to make some errors. They're going to lose 2 out of 3 in Cincinnati. Then they're going to come home to Petco and play the Yankees, and they're going to be fucking pests. And they're going to win that series over your Yankees. And you're going to be like, this team's really good. Like, we're going to go to the show Monday, and you're going to have watched a whole bunch of Yankees Padres from San Diego.
Yeah.
And you're going to be like, Dalton, the Padres are good, man. That ballpark was loud. That team is good. And I'm going to be like, yeah, that's how they look when they're engaged.
Maybe not anymore after everything that you're saying right now.
I'm just telling you, like, this is just who they are.
Yeah.
Like, as an organization, this is who they are. It's why I just don't, like, this is going to sound super douchey, but, like, it's why I just don't really respect them. Like, I don't take them that seriously. And it's because of bullshit like this.
Yeah. Well, they're definitely interesting. They definitely hit the addition of Arias. I mean, you're seeing the impact, right? That lineup is definitely better than it was with the addition of Arias. And I don't think that really needs to, that might be a little bit redundant. They're very middle of the pack when it comes to their pitching. They strike out a lot of hitters, but they give up a lot of home runs. Like, this is just kind of who they are. And like I said, I think it's interesting when you bring up this sort of dynamic that they have of, yeah, they take 2 out of 3. I'm sorry, they take 3 out of 4 from the Braves. They take 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers. They lose. They get swept by the Rockies at home. Like, I think it's very interesting, their dynamic. They must be, I mean, if you're a Padres fan, that must be a really frustrating team to watch. Just because, listen, I don't have much to add really here because, like I said, I don't watch the Padres nearly as much as you do. But I can definitely see that happening next week again. And then losing, they probably get swept by the Marlins at home after they beat the Yankees 2 out of 3. Like,
if you want to watch the plight of a Padres fan, a great follow on Twitter is Friar Phil. He's a guy who's been doing all kinds of like post-game vlogs for the Padres for years. I mean, this guy's as loyal as they come with the Padres. And I interact with him every once in a while on Twitter because he hates the Dodgers. And it's a lot of fun. He's exactly what you see from Padres fans, which is like the Dodgers are in town and it's like, this is like the season right here. Like, what are we going to do with the Dodgers in town? And you can see it in the players. You can see it in the fans. The place is at a fever pitch. They're like, holy fuck, we're playing the Dodgers. Like, we got a show out right now.
Yeah.
And then the Padres come to town midweek, and the exasperation from these folks, they're just like, oh my God, like, what happened? Where did that team that we just watched this weekend go? And it's like, well, they went where you went, right? You didn't go to the games when they were playing the Rockies either, did you? Right. Like, they went where you went, elsewhere mentally. So it's just an unserious team. It's just, enough of them.
They're interesting, right? And so, funny, we get into a score update here that concludes the 1-2-3 inning. Like I said, they lost to they beat the Braves earlier today in game one of their doubleheader today, 6-5. They won that game. They just went final in game two where they lost 3-0 to the Braves. Chris Sale against them, 7 innings, none earned, 5 hits, 9 Ks for Chris Sale against the Padres in the second half of this doubleheader today. Raisel Iglesias picking up his 11th save. Randy Vasquez giving up 3 on 10 hits in 6 innings. Former Yankee great Randy Vasquez getting the start for the San Diego Padres today. So that's part of that. The Mets and Guardians went final 3-1. Guardians take a win over the Mets. What do we have in that game too? Ben Lively, 1 earned, 6 hits, 5 2/3. 5 2/3 for the Guardians. Tyler Gill getting the loss. It really is. But so Guardians take home a win. The Mariners and the Yankees still 3-0 Bombers in the bottom of the 7th in New York. Like I said, Yankees over the Mariners. Brewers and Marlins in the top of the 9th. The Brewers with a 2-1 lead with 2 outs in the top of the 9th. The Twins and Nationals. The Nationals have stormed the Twins and are winning 10-3 heading into the bottom of the 8th in Washington. Still 5-0 Red Sox over the Rays in Tampa, top of the 9th with the Red Sox up on them. Royals 2-0. I'm sorry, not 2-0, 2-1 over the Tigers in Kansas City heading into the bottom of the 5th. Cardinals still up 1-0 against the Orioles in the bottom of the 4th. And the Angels and Astros with a 4-1 lead in the top of the 3rd in Houston over the Halos. So that does it for that score update. That's, like I said, that's the best part of every show now, is that in season we get to give you score updates. I find it pretty fun. Okay, so we found this article on Bleacher Report. I want to kind of get through this a little bit quickly because I kind of found it funny because we talk about trends a lot, Dalton, right? It's a long season. So we talk about like what we can expect from teams going forward, and we touch on everything that really comes with that. Zachary Reimer came out with an article today on Bleacher Report. It was titled, "Don't Be Fooled by These Early 2024 MLB Trends." So I want to kind of touch on them a little bit. The first one we have right here, and I don't want to touch on all of them, but William Contreras is not going to bat 350. I would bet that he's probably not going to bat 350. But so what exactly is he at right now? William Contreras is
hitting really good. I'll say that.
Yeah, he's hitting 341. He's already under 350. So
yeah, I mean, so some of these I read them and I'm like, well, no, of course he's not.
Right, exactly, right.
You know, it's like, of course he's not, but we should still celebrate what this guy's doing.
Oh, absolutely. 955 OPS. We did a segment on him a while ago too, where you were talking about he's
right now. I think you could make a real argument he's the best offensive catcher in baseball. Like, I really do think you could make that argument right now.
Yeah.
Which is part of why the Brewers are not bad.
Yeah, right. It is. No, he's, like I said, he's 26 years old. He's got a 955 OPS, right? He's hit like 340 is 340. like that's hitting. And especially in a position where, you know, catchers are not generally offensive players, right? We talked about it weeks ago when you talked about this, and you made a really good point, and I think it puts things in perspective where, like, the catcher position is really the only position you can roster where offense is not really that important, right? Like, you can really kind of sacrifice offense for a very good defensive catcher that works well with your pitching staff. Like, that's something I think that you can sacrifice, and William Contreras is not that. He's just one of these guys that hits the ever-loving crap out of the baseball. So, second one, it's kind of funny because you brought this topic up earlier today. Elly de la Cruz, he says he's not going to steal 100 bases. I just kind of have a feeling that he will. I just do. Like, I get this feeling that he's going to get really hot and singles are just going to turn into doubles for him. Like that's just kind of the feeling that I get with him.
Yeah, so I'm kind of torn on it because I do think that, like, if we get into August and it's within sight with him, I can see him like going out of his way to be the dude who is taken off every pitch when he's on.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
I can easily picture a world where he makes it happen. Um, but I think the point's also well taken that, like, look, if the bat continues to regress, if the bat regresses, he's not going to be on base as much.
Certainly.
But then the flip side of it is that, like, he's also not a guy who I'm expecting to hit a ton of singles. Like when he is getting hits, I'm expecting him to be like hitting doubles, triples, homers. So, I don't know. We'll see. I think it's going to have more to do with how many chances he gets to steal bases, rather than like I don't think he's going to all of a sudden start getting thrown out a bunch.
Yeah. So how about this one? This one I thought maybe, and this when I saw this one, this is the one that kind of gave me the idea. Shohei Ohtani isn't going to go 40-40-40. That's what he thinks. What do you make of that? So right now he sits 13 home runs, 16 doubles, 11 stolen bases. Right now I think he's the clear front runner for National League MVP. Yeah. So 40-40-40, what do you think?
I mean, probably not, right? I mean, my only beef with an article like this is what this person's doing is taking a bunch of things that are really unlikely to happen and then saying, I don't think they're going to happen. And it's like, well, yeah, of course not. Like, of course we don't think these things are going to happen, but the fact that they're possible is the fun part, right? So like, let's bask in that. And that's a little bit of what the article does. Yeah. With somebody like Ohtani, I think the 40 home runs is something that he could absolutely do. The one that's going to be tough for him is the stolen bases. I think the Dodgers want him to be a little bit choosy about when he takes off. So, I don't think he's going to get the 40 steals, but a 30-30-30 is still a ton of fun. I do think he's going to hit 40 homers. Yeah. So
I was a little behind on this one as well. So Gunnar Henderson not going to lead the majors in home runs. Again, this is, I think, kind of falling under the same category of like a lot can happen between now and then. Currently leads the majors with 15, but just talking about Gunnar Henderson from a star perspective, right? I mean, like Gunnar Henderson, I think is like it creates something of an interesting dynamic for when like Jackson Holiday comes up and starts hitting well as well. Right. Because like, so does Gunnar Henderson just, based on your opinion, really, and this might just be, picking something, but does Gunnar Henderson stay their shortstop? Like, does Gunnar Henderson move when Jackson Holiday comes up at some point?
I think they're going to kind of make an evaluation on that in the moment, like when the time comes that they have to make that decision.
Yeah.
Because Jordan Westberg at second base, he's got 7 homers. He's having a great season as well. He's hitting 291. Right. He's making that a tough conversation for them as well. And he's a big part of why they're able to be patient with Jackson Holiday the way they're able to. So, I just don't think the Orioles are too concerned with that conversation yet. I think that's one of those things that like you kind of expect it to shake out as it shakes out. Westberg, guy that can play second base, he can play third. Henderson can play all over the infield. I think Holiday could probably play all over the infield too.
Right.
So it's just kind of an embarrassment of riches for them.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. Does one of them end up being an outfielder eventually? Maybe. We've seen teams do things like that too. So certainly an embarrassment of riches in Baltimore as far as young talent. It's a great time to be an O's fan. And, for their sake, I hope they can hold on to as many of these guys as possible. Like, I'd like to see a team like Baltimore keep a young core and become like a year in and year out good team. Like, we need more markets to make an effort to be that. And they don't have to be big markets, right? Like, I'm wearing a Cardinals hat. The Cardinals have been that team for decades where it's like St. Louis isn't some big market, but they give a shit and they try to win. And like, it's what makes Cardinals fans, like, they've had it pretty good over the last several decades, and it's because the organization gives a shit. And I think
you can sense it.
What's that?
I said, you can sense it. Like Cardinal baseball, when you watch it, you can tell that this is an organization that cares, right? They try to put a good product on the field, and sometimes it's to their own chagrin, but a lot of the times they really do try to invest in good baseball over there.
Right. Right. Whereas the same can't be said in Pittsburgh, right? Historically, the same can't always be said in Baltimore. And so I'd love to see some of these cities, especially because, like, people don't give these fan bases enough credit. Like, I know you go to a Pirates game and it's 20% full or whatever, but the people that are there, like, they give a shit, right?
Yeah.
And there are a lot more people in that city that want to give a shit if you give them a reason to. So,
Yeah.
just in general, I hope they can keep it together in Baltimore.
Yeah, no, I agree. And this is the last one I want to touch on from this article as well, because one of these is like the Braves offense isn't this mid. Of course it's not. The Astros were never this bad. I'll throw that out there for you because, like I said, we've been talking about that for a couple of weeks, and I think we're kind of both on the same boat on that one.
Yeah.
But this is the last one really I want to talk about. The Yankees probably aren't this good. That offends me. That genuinely offends me.
I mean, look, Mike, like, they're probably not this good. Like, if we want to be technical about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are they? 33-15, right?
Yeah.
So 33 over 48, 0.687 win percentage. Multiply that by 162. They're on pace for 111 wins. Mike, are they going to win 111 games?
Yeah, no duh.
I don't think so. But like, but this again is where it's like, okay, yeah, they're probably not going to win 111 games, but like the fact that now saying that the Yankees are going to win 105 doesn't sound like they'd be going.
Sound ridiculous.
Now that doesn't sound silly. Preseason, I'm like, that's a 95 win team. Now that's a 105 win team.
Yeah,
I think that's worth celebrating rather than being like, oh well, they're not this good. Okay, yeah, sure,
Yeah.
So
you're right.
I'm not trying to like take a dump on the dude who wrote this article because it was certainly it's an entertaining read, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, I've communicated with him before. I've commented on a lot of his articles before, and him and I have had some back and forth in the past, but it's all in good fun. But okay, so that moves us to Dalton's hot corner. What do you have for us?
Yeah, I've got one spot I want to take a look at tomorrow. Whenever you see a team playing a doubleheader without a day off to follow it, a lot of times that's a team that you want to pump the brakes on a little bit. The Braves are not a team that I like to bet against often. But they played a doubleheader today, and tomorrow and then after this game tonight, they travel to Chicago. And they play the Cubs tomorrow at Wrigley tomorrow night. And they're facing one of the best pitchers in the National League that nobody's paying any attention to in Javier Assad. Braves right now are favored in that game. They're minus 135, minus 130, depending on what book you look at. I think that's a little bit too much. You can get the Cubs right now as much as plus 114 at FanDuel. Javier Assad has been ridiculous for them. He's been incredible. And the difference with these bullpens, the Braves having to cover 2 games today. Now, granted, Sale saved them a bit in the second one, but Braves having to cover 2 ball games today, Cubs having a day off today, that makes a massive difference for the 2 bullpens. So to me, the fact that the Cubs are underdogs here, I kind of think in this spot the wrong team's favored. So I respect Charlie Morton. I respect what he's doing at his age, but let me give you some numbers on Assad. 4-0 with a 1.49 this season. You look at what he's done in his last several starts. In the month of May, he's got a 0.55 ERA, 15 strikeouts over 15 strikeouts with 6 walks. Last start was 7 strikeouts, 1 walk against Atlanta, where he went 6 shutout innings. Oof. Charlie Morton just gave up 3 runs to the Cubs. So, but if you look at Assad, like, this is how many earned runs he's allowed his last 6 starts: 1, 1, 1, 0, 1, 0. I mean, like, he's right there, in my opinion, with Luis Gil on like the kind of breakout pitchers of the season so far. And it's funny, I was listening to another podcast, the Cespedes Barbecue one. They were touching on the fact that like Mark Leiter Jr. said way back in the early part of the season that Javier Assad was one of the best pitchers in the big leagues, and everybody was kind of laughing at him. Not really laughing at him anymore.
No.
This guy's really good. And so I think it's just a good spot tomorrow to fade the Braves and get plus money against them.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fairly solid point that you make. Listen, the Braves are going to be tired regardless. You get a travel night tonight after a doubleheader. You don't get a day off. That's really not a great spot to be in. Just for the viewing audience that didn't catch it before, you're betting the Astros again to win the division. So where was that number at before when you mentioned it?
Yeah, I mean, I got them at FanDuel at plus 175 earlier today to win the division. I just think that they should be the favorite to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were to ask me what I would actually make the odds right now, I'd probably make them like plus 110. So I think there's solid value on them to win that division, and I think you have to bet it now because by the end of this week, assuming they do what they're supposed to against the Angels and A's, that opportunity is not going to look the way it does right now. So I like that number a lot. Let me see if I can get an updated look at what that is now. AL West, Astros plus 175 right now on FanDuel. I also like NL East. The Braves are minus 150 at the moment. I think the Phillies have another good week or two left in them.
Yeah.
And we can see this number maybe dip a little bit. But if you bet the Braves at minus 150, I wouldn't blame you. I'll say that because I think that this is a team that before the season was like minus 350. So those are two things that I'm betting the Astros today. I'm monitoring the Braves because I think they're worth taking a stab at as well in that division.
Yeah. So there we go. That's Dalton's hot corner. A couple of surefire ones, I think. Those are fairly safe bets, Dalton, today.
No such thing as a safe bet, Mike, but we like them.
That's probably the healthy way to look at it. Okay, that does it for us. This is the Bicoastal Baseball Podcast on the Grid Network. I'm Mike Guido. That's Dalton Brown. Dalton, any parting words before we leave our viewers tonight?
Go Dodgers. That's about it.
That's it. That's all I'm asking for here. We will see you soon. Again, every Monday, 8 o'clock Eastern. We will see you next week.